here with season 2 of Square Talk. I'm your host, Loris. Ro is not with me today, but he'll be back shortly. I have two special guests today. I have Marvin and Albee from Ovalz. Say what's up, guys.
Hi, everybody. Yeah.
All right. They're first gonna tell us about what they're doing. They're doing a lot of great things with Ovalz and inventory, and they're going to educate us on that. But first, before we get into that, let me just ask Marvin first. How did you get into the cannabis industry? And then we'll jump to Albee.
Wow. Okay. Well, it's kind of long, but I'll try to make it brief. As far as getting in the cannabis industry, we had the good fortune to meet a couple people, and also Albee is a patient, so he was, just his journey kind of led us there. And we started going to events. We met people. We saw what we were working on could add value as we got to talk to cannabis retailers and business owners. We attended a conference called Avante here in the DC area where we're based. And I was fortunate enough to be on a panel, and I thought I could add value and help people. And that's kind of our mission, to try to help people reach their maximum potential. And so if that box is checked, we feel like it's a place we need to be. So.
Awesome. And Albee, since you are a patient, I'm sure your story is also quite interesting. How did you get into cannabis?
Oh, yeah. So for a long time, I've had a chronic pain condition, and with the doctors and many procedures, I always felt there was a more natural way to treat some of this, as opposed to, 4 or 5 years ago, the MO was for doctors just to prescribe as much as possible, and it's fine, just take these. But I always knew there was so much more to life than kind of giving up and going on disability and just laying around on opioids. The cartoons are funny for a week or two, but then, there's a lot more to life out there. I was lucky enough with Marvin here that, we've been working on some great things. And, although it does apply to, retailers and wholesalers across the world in, all sorts of different industries, we found that, a lot of traction inside cannabis. And so just going out, TPAD is one of the events that we've had a lot of success trying to, integrate with people. Even attending your green school was, fantastic, making, connections with like-minded folks. And then, Marvin brings a whole wealth of experience from his consulting life. And so we've done hundreds of surveys and interviews and really dug in and zeroed in on where we can add the most value with the technology and IP that we bring to the table. So
awesome. So let me ask you, back with the medical side, when did you have the epiphany saying, okay, I need to try natural medicine? And how did you decide, say, okay, I'm going to try cannabis?
Well, I've been following it for many years, going all the way back to when I was young. I always felt that there was a big gap, when I grew up, seeing the effects of people recreationally abusing alcohol and recreationally, enjoying cannabis. And I always felt there was a big disconnect on a legality front on that. And then, when it started to come out, in press and articles and other places that, this was, medicinally helpful, I said, hey, I want to try this. And I was not lucky enough to be in a state that where it was legal. And this was a problem. I had moved here from Berkeley, California, and so I kind of did some quote testing when I was in and around other places, Colorado, California, and I found really positive results that it really calm my nerve down, and I could function at a really high level without, all the side effects of the normal opioids from the pharmaceuticals, without any of the side effects, which is amazing. And then, as the industry progressed, the fact that they really broke down the details of exactly what is in, what you're purchasing, that just makes a huge difference as a patient, to knowing exactly what you're about to ingest and how it's going to affect you, as opposed to, the doctors and pharmacists. This has been prescribed to you, and the positive effects may outweigh all the negative side effects. It's literally printed on the label.
Yeah.
And and it's just a terrible way to live. And now looking backwards, you can see, the hundreds of thousands of deaths from the opioid crisis. And it's just a shame, because not one from, ODing on cannabis medicine.
Absolutely.
So
what's your preferred method of consumption? How do you consume cannabis?
So for me personally, I'm a family guy. I've got a wife and kids, and I'm very active in their lives. And, also with allergies and asthma, I prefer not to inhale or ingest anything. So I use, for me, I found that topicals, or, actually eating something is the most effective for me personally. There are, there are many different ways, but, for me as a patient, and I think everyone is on their own journey. And I think this is one side of the industry that, is open, is ripe for someone to fill in some solutions. I've seen some workbooks and some apps under development, but the whole patient side of trying to understand your own body's chemistry and what really works for you, I think that is going to be what's really important.
Yeah, because for me, I had no interest in smoking or inhaling anything. So for me, it was purely, I came into it as a non-traditional user about 2 years ago, and I had hemp soda, and that was and I've had some edibles, some gummies, but I'd probably be open to trying topicals, but inhalation, that definitely wasn't my thing. So I think that's important, because different people require different methods for, consuming based on, their preferences and things of that nature. So that's cool. That's good to know. So you were more on the topical side and a little bit of the oral ingestion.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
What about you, Marvin? How do you partake in cannabis?
Partake in cannabis. I guess for me, it's more for business than anything. I just try to talk to patients, talk to owners, I'm just more like a student, if you will. Okay. And I'm more about how can I help people that want to consume and people who have products, and what can I do to kind of facilitate that type of activity in a way that creates a better experience for the customers, but also keep these people open for business, because especially with everything going on now with Corona and stuff, we have to really think about new ways to try to serve people, and how I can be an enabler of that. So
absolutely. So before we jump into COVID-19, how did you guys come up with the name Ovalz? Tell us the etymology of the name.
We have another co-founder. Before Albee joined the team to make it the great team it is today, it was two reasons. Well, Ovalz kind of represents, our mission it's simple, but it is focused. So our mission is really about how can we build tools to enable small businesses to recapture revenue and leverage data. So the ovals represent different ovals or tools that we want to create to help people do that. And so the small answer was S wasn't available as a domain. And so V made sense. So we came up with the Z because Z in math means infinite. And so
Okay.
we feel like there's infinite ways that we can help or want to help people reach their maximum potential. And that's why it's called Ovalz. Yeah.
Okay.
And in addition, the Z makes it cool.
The Z what? What? I didn't catch that. Say that again. The Z what?
Oh, the Z makes it cool.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, well,
So Ovalz specializes in inventory management for cannabis, or it's more extensive?
No, that's a little. Well, we don't try to be an inventory management system. So
Okay.
I'm big on data. So I'll just name one thing. So 63% of all retailers, cannabis and outside of cannabis, have an average inventory accuracy rate of 63%. And we try to address that problem. So what we are is an inventory accuracy platform for retailers and wholesalers. And so we focus on the data and the accuracy aspect of it. And then we measure and audit that. And then we do predictions around that to help people with what we found as a bigger challenge with this, the accuracy aspect. Management is kind of like just checking the boxes. We're focused on the measurement, auditing, and prediction. So it's not only right, and we want to leverage that data for insight, and they can leverage that for things like marketing campaigns. Is this marketing campaign working? What are they buying? How fast is it moving? Cutting down on the labor costs to manage your inventory, because since we're all in a regulated environment, it's mandated that they do the inventory. So we try to do things ways to cut costs or create revenue opportunity or expose information that allows them to do that. So.
Wow. So very, very, very comprehensive. So I have a question. Why is it that most companies' inventory accuracy is 60%? Why is it around that number?
That's a good question. I'll let Albee kind of give his thought, because I don't want to take all the conversation, but I would just say it comes down to one thing. It's time and urgency. So as a small business owner, you only have so much time and you're doing a bunch of different things. And so you could either, your inventory could be accurate in totality, but it might be wrong, and like it's in the wrong location. I grabbed the wrong bag of cannabis. I opened something, but I said it was somewhere else. Or location, because as a cannabis operator, I have a vault, which is a secure room, right? Then I have a processing room. Then I have my sales floor. And then I might have other things like a display area and also quarantine items, like items that might be spoilage. So all these different moving parts in a fast moving environment enable mistakes. And then the use of Excel kind of enables that to go, error happen. Because I don't know if you know, but like the average Excel file has a 88% error rate. So what we found of talking to people is they supplement doing this activity with Excel and manual process. And so that creates more opportunity for error to happen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Have some. Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's fascinating, and like I said, we like to really peel back the onion and literally going in dispensary, and watching operations and taking notes and doing interviews. The mistakes are happening all over. And Marvin gave one example, and it was, hey, I have, and this is like, at least in cannabis, it's so controlled, but I have this one manufactured, in this one strain. So it's, whatever your favorite brand and your favorite strain. And, you request this. Oh, look, here I'm looking down in our sales room, because controlled environments, they have very specific rooms. Usually there's a vault in the back for storage. There's a processing area. There's an in-processing area. There's a check-in area. Then there's a sales room. So the bud tender leaves the sales floor, goes back into the vault, grabs the same exact brand, the same exact strain, but doesn't realize that it's got a different SKU. because of the way the whole system was architected, it's not the same thing, even though it is the same thing. And it may even be from the same batch, but it is not the same thing when it comes down to the records and, you know, the inventory accuracy. And so right there, in just that split second, this creates this whole daisy chain. And so suddenly it's wrong in the POS, it's wrong in metric, it's wrong in their own internal accounting system. You know, and so you have all these different data sources that you need to replicate the inventory, and it needs to be accurate. And they have these huge issues where things are just, you know, out of sync. And most of the time, they don't even know. And when they do find out, they have to spend hours trying to reconcile an audit. And you go back to that process, and you come back and you look, and you may find on a piece of paper on a clipboard that who the heck is a squiggle? You know, they don't even know. They're trying to look at this piece of paper and find out, like, who did this? Who, you know? And by then, you know, they're trying to figure out, you know, how to account for that. And so we're really, at the end of the day, we're just trying to make everyone's life easier. And if you go into your local dispensary and you talk to the bud tender and you bring up inventory accuracy and their process, you will see them start to sweat a little, get nervous. They will ask you to do anything you can to make their life easier for that process, because at the end of the day, they want to spend their time interfacing with the patient. They want to make the patient's life better. So we're trying to enable them and the business owners to be able to give a better experience to the customer, which in the end, you know, and I'll ask you, I mean, wouldn't that, I mean, hey, you know, how do they build a better brand? How do they, you know, create loyalty? You know, it comes back down to that kind of customer interaction, you know, and if we can help them, you know, even make, you know, a few percentage points better on the accuracy, which often it's much more than that. You know, we think we can be more up in the 30% range of improvements, but, you know, any minor improvements for a small business in their inventory accuracy, it's their bottom line positively. And, you know, in this environment, just over the last few weeks, as things are dynamically evolving, it's going to be more and more and more important to them to make sure that they are, you know, finding every dollar that they can.
Indeed.
So that long-winded answer, but
no, but very informative. Very informative. Learned something new. That's really comprehensive what you guys are doing. And so let me ask you this. So when you guys are out prospecting or you're talking to dispensary owners, or do you encounter a lot of resistance in terms of, you know, them seeing the benefits of what you guys offer, or is it pretty much once you start talking to them, they basically start to agree, hey, yeah, we have problems in this area? What would you say?
I would say the opposite, Marv. I'm going to jump in here if that's okay, and then I'll hand it over. But I'll say it's the opposite. It's more along the lines of, oh, that's great, but by the way, we also have this problem and that problem.
Okay.
So, for example, you know, products spoil, right? Cannabis has a 1-year expiration date, right? And right now, between triangulating all these systems, there's no good spoilage monitoring. So that's just one example of a feedback from a dispensary owner, not even operations manager, GM, from the owner level, saying, hey, could you really help us with this? And there's a million of these examples. You know, if anything, it's the exact opposite. We go in and they want to engage, and then they would like us to solve a list of other problems, which is fine. We are there to do whatever we can do to help.
Yeah, so it's a cascading effect. So basically, once you knock over one domino, it just keeps going, and they're like, hey, well, we got these other problems here we need help with.
Yeah. Marvin, anything to add?
I would say that, but what we've tried to do is prioritize around our mission to make sure we're aligning, because there's some problems worth solving, but we're not the ones to solve it because of the mission that we're on. And so we, like the spoilage thing is something we're adding to the platform in the next month, probably. Okay. So that's, and it fits with the data that we're already collecting. So what we try to do is look at like this, like Albie tries to say daisy chain, but the inventory is the lifeblood of their revenue. And so we want to leverage that to push them so they can either figure out ways to cut their expenses and do some things. So like product labels is something else we've been told a lot. Like it's a manual process, it's painful. A lot of the POSs make it hard. So that might be something we say later. But so we try to do things we think we can give them the most value at the fastest rate. And that's how we make decisions on what we want to improve or refine our products around. So
Awesome. So let's jump to the elephant in the room, COVID-19. Last time I met you guys, which was after a green school class, was at WeWork. So I know with this, everybody's at home, nobody's at WeWork. So it's just been like I said, a cascading effect in terms of this has affected everybody's business in some way, shape, or form. How have you guys been adjusting to coronavirus and just having to pivot like most businesses have?
I would say we've been doing a lot of similar things. I'm actually at the WeWork now. There's like one person here maybe, but I would say because we've always had a digital kind of focused model, so our outreach is a lot of inbound or outreach through LinkedIn or phone calls or emails, and so we just try to work with people the way they work. Because what we found is once a dispensary opens, it's very difficult for people to engage anyway because there's so much activity. So our ability to kind of work with them on their terms seems to have been helpful. So so we do a lot of Zooms and auto book meetings on your terms, and it works pretty well. Email campaigns, that sort of thing, and that hasn't so far it hasn't been a barrier for us.
Yeah, just to complement that, I would say that if anything, it brings us back to our true strategy that we had kind of moved a little bit away from. We're doing, more and more face to face, but getting back to our true strategy of trying to, be digital first and, go after high scale. And that's the way we can reach and help as many, or more and more, literally hundreds of thousands of folks by using the digital means. So,
awesome.
In that aspect, it's been good. I got to say, as a patient, I'm not exactly enjoying being holed up over here. I miss my daily routine. Marvin and I spent a lot of time together, and it's been really tough to, be apart. We're friends too. So, it's been a real challenge to, be apart all the time. But, one of the things we did is put together daily sync meetings and try and communicate, even over communicate. So, probably syncing up twice a day, constant messaging, using all the tools to our disposal, Slack, email, text, everything that we can find, we will use. So.
Awesome. It's just interesting to hear everybody's response to having to adjust. Some people have had to adjust drastically. Other people, it's a slight adjustment. Other people, it's worked to their benefit. Other people, they're still trying to figure things out. So it's just been very interesting with this COVID-19, and it doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon. It looks like pretty much we're going to be dealing with this for I can see for the whole year or maybe longer. Hopefully not. Knock on wood. But that's what I'm seeing. So what advice would you give to cannabis businesses right now, either of you two, who are, because there's such a range of not everybody's a dispensary, not everybody's a grower. What kind of advice would you give to them in terms of navigating through this crisis?
I would just say a couple of things. Look for opportunity, because there's opportunity even in bad moments. And the second thing is, where can I reduce costs? And not necessarily with people, but what manual processes am I doing that I could probably automate that could cut down on friction or cut down on labor, activity that's not going to help me, so I can focus more on how I can deliver to customers, right? Like for example, here in Maryland, they're letting people walk package, product out of their dispensary to the car, for example. So if you have more people that can engage with that, what are the things I'm doing? I call it the business behind the business that are making it harder for me to pivot, because you have to be able to always be willing and able to pivot around an environment, right? And this is a major pivot, but it could be a minor pivot, like a licensing problem, right? You have to you got to be flexible. You have to structure your business flexibly enough to adapt to changes as they happen, and think about ways you can be better at that than maybe you were before this happened. I don't know if Callie has anything to add to that, but that's
I completely agree with that. The other thing is that, I think, focus on the humans. Marvin always talks about, what can we do to help them be more human? And I think, as they run their business and they continue to give the best experience they can, I know here in the state of Maryland that they've been rapidly evolving, trying to adapt to the daily, if not hourly messages coming out from, the federal and state. And then their governing Cannabis Commission. And so just this week alone, they're able to roll out curbside delivery. So as a patient, you can place your order online and then kind of roll up and not even get out of your car. This enforces, some very positive social distancing for both their own employees, but the patients too. So I think, my only thing to add would be, focus on not only your people, but the people that you're serving. And, you always win. You always win in the long term. And they keep that long focus because, as you mentioned, when this will be over. But what I would say is that the changes that we're going to go through during this process are going to stick. The world's going to change, and we all have crystal balls, and we can sit around and argue what it's going to be like, but we don't really know. But the thing is keep planning and moving forward for the long game.
Absolutely. What I would like to add to that, I was at Trader Joe's the other day, and I had my gloves on, I had my mask on, and I was watching the guy behind the counter ringing my stuff up at the cashier, and he kept touching. He didn't have on any gloves. That was the first thing I noticed, and he kept touching his face. Like he would pick up something, touch his face, and then ring it up. And I remember thinking, okay, I got to go home and wipe down literally everything he's touched after I get back home, because you don't know. You don't know.
That's right.
Yeah. So from a dispensary standpoint, cannabis is medicine, and yes, there's been a huge surge in sales of cannabis at dispensaries, but it's mostly people buying in bulk because they're preparing for social isolation. So they know they're going to go hunker down for a while. But there's going to come a point where they're going to either run out or, they need to come back and pick things up. And, branding, of course, is not just graphics. It's about the customer experience. That's definitely one major area. So like for bud tenders, besides disinfecting, of course, the common places like the doorknobs, the countertops, the registers, all the high touch areas, after what I saw at Trader Joe, they need to be, if they're shipping product to people or taking it curbside, out the door, they need to actually individually wipe down the jars and the products as they're putting them into the, the box or whatever the container is, especially when you're dealing with, immunocompromised patients, so they really need to shift to disinfecting everything that's going to come into contact with a customer, because of what's going on. And especially too, the people who run the dispensaries need to also pay attention to everybody that's working there for signs of, fever, sore throat, dry cough, who's coughing a lot, who doesn't look well, and say, okay, well, we need to, get this person out of here because he was basically contaminating the whole place. So I think, and that also too, maybe even documenting that process, through video and showing, say, hey, here are the extra steps we take to ensure that, during this crisis, that you don't catch coronavirus by, experiencing or engaging with our dispensary or our brand. So that's some of the things that popped into my mind, like I said, from just being at Trader Joe. It's funny how you one thing just leads to the next thing.
Yeah. I would just piggyback on what you said and say, I sum it up in 2 words: trust and transparency. What can
Absolutely.
I do to build greater trust, and how can I be more transparent? Because what it does is create brand loyalty. People will
Absolutely.
remember that. And so it goes to Albie's point about the long game, because what we've noticed talking to dispensary owners is customers don't have brand loyalty in general. They have product loyalty.
Yep.
And so a shift must happen if you want to create brand loyalty, like your dispensary, your product. So it has to be the experience, like you talked about earlier, that you create, but how you make them feel. It's an emotional thing. And they'll pay more to feel better about their purchase. And what are you doing to create that, foster those emotions, trust and transparency? Because that's what's going to let you win in the long run.
Absolutely. That transparency, like I said, even documenting, through video, saying, hey, look at the extra steps we're taking, that builds trust. And you're absolutely right about the branding in cannabis. I mean, it's people are loyal to the products, and because the branding really is still very much non-existent, from my perspective. And that's one of the things I wanted to help change, was because I just didn't see it. When you look at all the other industries that are out there, pharmaceuticals, oil, oil and gas, all in the major industries, you see the branding that's been put into place. And cannabis, I'm still just not seeing it. So it's interesting that you mentioned that.
So along those lines, we could ask you, what do you recommend in these times, these extremely fluid times? What could they be doing, or us as someone who is serving them, from a brand perspective? What kind of recommendations do you have for them to, to survive, to be frank? A lot of these small businesses are really hurting.
Yeah. Well, the one good thing is that I've seen, as far as a market opportunity, well, there's tremendous market opportunities, I think, in this crisis, but one specifically for the cannabis industry. There's a lot of anxiety right now, because you have a lot of people who basically aren't accustomed to even just staying at home for these long periods of time. And and then of course the job uncertainty, for those who are, more on the, in the service industry, or they're working hourly and they've basically been sent home. CBD, one of its main ailments that it helps with is anxiety. And in green school, we talked about the traditional user versus the non-traditional user. I remember if you guys were there when we did the graph, and we were showing where the future growth was in cannabis is not the traditional user, which is a person who's already been acquainted with cannabis. They already know what they like. It's the non-traditional, the people who haven't yet been introduced to cannabis. And most of them are going to be coming in through CBD. So using that education to say, hey, here's something that can actually help you deal with your anxiety while you're going through this crisis. So dispensaries and other cannabis businesses need to focus again on education, but tailored to what the pain points people are feeling right now due to the crisis. So that's, I guess, the B2C approach that I would recommend. As far as business to business, they need to just, again, create more content, but create content that's dealing with what we're going through right now. So you may have to shift from all the other stuff you were producing before, because people might not really be interested in that, because that's not the pain point right now. The pain point is, I've had to change my life, I've had to change my business model, or if I had to shut down my business in some cases, you know, how do I resolve those things? So if you provide a solution, or you have ideas for a solution, and again, of course, all that is underpinned by COVID-19, that's what's going to build that brand loyalty and build that standout brand right now. Because again, people are going to focus on who's giving them answers to their problems. So we talked about a green school, and of course I talk about it all the time, with being the hub for useful information, for educational information, for solving people's pain points. Except now the focus is a little different, because the pain point is being caused by coronavirus. So that is what I would suggest.
To kind of piggyback off something you said, that I just had a thought was, you know, we always use these 3 questions. We tell people why you lose customers around inventory. It's if you can't answer what do you have, what to buy, do you have it, and when can I get it, you're gonna lose every time. That's what Amazon does better than anybody. So I would say they need to think about building their business around current demand patterns. Like if you're buying certain products that only move at certain times of the year, or anxiety's up, well, you might need to shift your buying patterns to adjust to the needs of the customer base in real time. And that's something I don't see cannabis people doing. They just have a traditional, hey, we buy this, we buy that. But you need to adapt to what's going on in your local market and buy to the need, so you can kind of address that problem of, hey, that's an example of how you're adapting to in real time, or pivoting around need, not just from a marketing standpoint, but what products you have available and the customers you're serving, because people are buying in bulk, right? Well, they're also tight on cash. So what will they be most likely to buy in bulk, and why do they buy that, right? So those are just things to monitor, so you can address those needs and adapt your business to what's happening right now. So.
Yeah, and even doing things like getting your business online, in terms, and people might say, okay, well, I have a website. Okay, but your website might not be tailored to handle the crisis. Something Albee had said earlier, I think when we're talking about giving advice, you know, during this crisis, something that popped into my head was using chatbots, because you see people letting employees go. Business owners need to be able to focus on the core business, and in some cases they have to completely change the core business to deal with, you know, like you said, people buying in bulk and all the issues we're having to contend with right now. Like even with Green School, we've had to pivot because people aren't coming to class. We aren't hosting class because we can't have people in clusters like that and potentially spread COVID-19. So shifting to online classes is something we're working on. But businesses having chat bots that you can put on the website, and you program to answer all the typical questions, and even the new questions that are coming up. Hey, do you guys have curbside? Do you guys have delivery? And all these other things that will free up your time so you can go do something. So these chatbots now, of course, they're so advanced, and you can program them to basically just respond like a regular person. And that is something that, especially if your business is very customer service oriented, you know, you're in the store, or maybe you're dealing with something else, you don't have time to sit at a computer, the chatbot would come in. So basically utilizing technology, to help alleviate the stress, especially too if you've had to let people go. Maybe you had somebody sitting by the computer and now you had to let them go due to, the situation. So those are some of the things that come to mind regards to how we can basically deal with the struggle that we're going to be contending with, for a while.
I'd also say using technology to create human experiences, like, because like a bud tender, for example, maybe you could virtualize a bud tender where because their whole point is to help a customer get what they want. And so how can you create human experiences when you can't be in front of people and people can't be in front of you? And they have to be very liberal when they leave the house. When they leave the house, they're probably going to say, I'm going to do as much as I can, as quickly as I can. So help them. So when they leave, they try to buy something that you make sure whatever you say you have, that you actually have it, and you have the amount they need. They don't go on the website and you say you have this much and they get there and it's gone, or or you ran out, right? The other thing is, how can you help people make decisions, like new customers or CBD people figure out what they need to buy, right? Can you develop a little quiz or tools people can answer questions and you can give them some recommendations? Can you have a live stream where people can put in questions to create experiences that help them get comfortable? So I think we need to think about ways to be human when we're not together is also important. So I think
I agree. Albee, you have anything to add to that?
No, I think he hit it on the head. I think I'll just leave it at that for the moment.
Well, I want to expand on it a little bit more in terms of, you're absolutely right, Marvin. And I think that just the focus on educating customers needs to be more intense and needs to have a bit more of a creative and fun twist, because you have people who are, getting depressed and they're high in anxiety. So sharing educational content that's entertaining, while people are cooped up at home, is a key area that you need to focus on when producing content right now during this environment. And, keep in mind that, your marketing staff too, if you have them, they can work from home. Let them brainstorm from home. You guys jump on Zoom and do all this work from home and create this educational, but at the same time, keyword entertaining content to help educate people as far as what their options are with cannabis right now, because cannabis at the end of the day is medicine. So, and there's a lot that people don't know. People are still very ignorant about cannabis and what the possibilities are. So this is a great time to educate them, but again, do so in an entertaining format, because people are down right now. So, yeah. So besides,
totally agree. Well, one thing to add to that, I guess I do have something to say,
good.
But would be, along the lines of, not only that, but like going back to the people and if their people are scared and unhappy, it's just gonna cascade out. And so, I think you hit on the flexibility aspect. I think that's important. But sharing additional information, in addition to, the medicine of, encouraging them, if you can't get out, figure out a way to move your body inside, do something, pick up a yoga video. If you can't get outside and get some sunshine, which, you should move your body every day and get some sunshine, pick up one of these $20, $30 UV lights, spend 20 minutes in front of that. It's a tough time for everybody, but they really need, if they're the owner, they need to own this and really, set forth the tone outwards to their customers, and that's the same with, maybe you need to eat a little better right now. Maybe, learn a new skill, encourage people to try something they haven't tried before, while they're, taking their medicine, and educating them about their medicine. I think, if they can try and put those messages out, that's good for the greater population as a whole.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of learning a new skill, a friend of mine who very successful businessman who always says to me, so, you know, in times of adversity or when things are slow, when things are bad, he's like, rather than sit around and mope, take that time to upgrade your skills. So that's actually a great point you mentioned.
Couldn't agree more.
And you know, learn something new, especially with today, with all the technology that's available and all the knowledge that's easily accessible now. You know, take the time to, rather than mope, learn something new. So when you come out of this, you come out of this stronger than you went in. You know? So that's some of the advice that I think people listening to this episode of Square Talk should heed. And you know, hopefully we can all pull through this and come out a lot stronger than we went in. So what do you?
Fantastic.
What do you guys? No, go ahead, Marvin.
No, I said exactly. I was just going to say, and think about partnerships too. Like, maybe a competitor can be a partner during these times, right? Where you can come up with innovative ways to create opportunity for yourself, like shared marketing, or like maybe they both have an expert on something and you join forces to talk about a topic or deliver some of this information. So I think we might need to look at ways we can work together, because as the industry as a whole is better, stronger, then it helps everybody prosper. So
Awesome. So while I have you guys on the show, you guys are both students of Green School, and you, Marvin, has actually put to use some of the knowledge you gained at Green School. Why don't you talk about that a little bit and how that helped you before we got into this COVID-19 scenario?
Sure. I think I would say the three big things we learned was, one is refining our, what you call it, statement of mastery.
Statement of mastery, yeah.
And owning that, and just kind of, we thought we had one, but I think it got a lot better as a result of your training, and practicing it on real people, because we can attest, like, we don't get questions or what we do, or you know, and a lot of people, when they pitch you at a networking event, that's a problem. You're still not sure what they do and the value they offer.
Yeah.
Staying value focused.
Yeah.
And looking at social media as real estate. And then what we did is took that information and asked ourselves, where is the audience that we want to talk to, which is business owners, most likely going to be it. So we decided to try to get great at LinkedIn, and then we'll add others as we get better, you know. So you have to go where your audience is, not try to force the audience to come to you. And so I think those are the three big takeaways that I got out of the class. So,
awesome.
And I will say, just to supplement that, you know, Marvin's been able to be a bit more active than myself, given where we are in our cycle towards launch here. And I've learned that if we can, you know, use these tools, and Marvin alluded to LinkedIn, but if we can use these tools strategically and mindfully, they become much more effective than just kind of throwing some spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. Right. Yeah. We're big believers in the A/B testing and making data-driven decisions. And you know, with your guidance, been able to you know, improve our posting schedule, how we're posting, what we're posting, you know, both from a personal perspective, but also from a company perspective. And I think we're already seeing some positive dividends on this. So just wanted to share that and say thank you, because I think that's really helped.
Awesome. So I guess my last question before we getting close to wrapping up this episode, because you guys, you came to the first class, but circumstances you haven't been able to attend the others. But now with the advent of us about to do the online classes, What classes or what topics are you guys mostly interested in, especially now with with the climate we're in? What topics come to mind while we're putting our curriculum together?
I would say inbound marketing, not just for me, but I think for all people, how to engage with an audience and leverage inbound activities to create activity so you can bring awareness to what you do and get people interested during this time. So I think that's really important, even for people that have been traditionally face-to-face businesses, as in I call them personality businesses. So their personality drives their sales. And you have to figure out ways to deliver yourself in digitally, or you're not going to be able to create opportunity for yourself. So I think it's really important to create strategies and specific strategies that will allow people to bring people to you and also go to people digitally without like being what I call digital cold calling, without doing that. I think that's really important.
Okay. What about you, Albee?
Yeah, to actually follow on what Marvin's saying, that would be going in the next level in, how to, we touched on it quite a bit here, but, kind of formally in a class setting, at a messaging level, kind of getting down to that detail of how to adjust your messaging in all of these communications in the new world. But in a way that you can continue to not only sustain a healthy business, but look at what kind of growth you can have in this crazy, turned upside down world that we're being forced to adopt.
So last question before we wrap this up. Pricing, because in marketing, it's product pricing, placement, and promotion. So I guess we can shift to pricing in this particular instance. What since it's online, and would you guys prefer, just to get some feedback, a subscription-based model or a a la carte model? So basically just pay for what you need.
I think you need to do both, because different people will need different things, right? So for some people, there might be one specific topic or one set of content that might work best for them. And then for other people, a series of topics around the theme is going to work for them. For example, if you did inbound, there's so many aspects of inbound, right? You could do subcategories of it and have an inbound, group set of classes, right? It might be 2 or 3 things, or maybe you cover email marketing in one, and how to have emotional intelligence in your marketing, for example, could be something else, right? So I just think it's a mix, but they all build on one another, or they can stand alone individually. It's important. That's what I would say. So,
And as far as the price, because again, right now, the issue with pricing is you have people who are at home. Some people are in a good financial position, others are not. And with class content, especially the type of stuff we're delivering, it's nice to have a range of what type of pricing. So off the top of your head, what were you thinking?
if you're doing it digitally, I would try to look at models that are already out there, like 20 to 40, because people would pay that much anyway. But I would look at how many more people could I get online, because now I might get 100 attendees versus 10.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So I think it's just going to depend on how many students that you think you can get through digitally, and that'll drive what you can do, right? So I would say it depends, but I'd be very, just off the top, I would say probably during this time, people will probably not spend more than $40 or 30. So if you could do something for in that 20 to 30 range, you could do pretty well probably, because I think people spend $20 to learn something. But it's just going to depend on the model. So, that's my thought. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because people, from our research, we have what we call the I don't want to call it the no-brainer pricing, but I don't think about it pricing. Basically, that ends at $40. Basically, anything over 40, they start thinking about it. Anything $40 and under, they're like, okay, I'll just get it. And that's a price point that we've tested out, and we've talked to other people too who are using some of those pricing strategies, and they definitely say anything over 40, people start to think about it, and which you don't want. So that's actually a good range that you mentioned, because that's definitely well under that. So that's awesome. Yeah. Well, guys, it has been a pleasure. I wish Ro was here, because I'm sure he'd have had some more interesting things to add to the discussion. But for those listening, we're on season 2 of Square Talk, and we're going to have hopefully we'll have Marvin and Albee on again. We're going to try and have more guests who are going to share their experience during these trying times, and how they're helping and navigating in the cannabis industry. Is there anything you guys want to plug that's coming up?
Sure. We actually have a free beta going on. So if anybody's interested and think they can get some value out of our offering, they can go to our website, ovalz.io, and click the link, and they can use Ovalz for free, and give us, hopefully to help them and give us some feedback. So we'd be more than happy if they did that, or they can go to our LinkedIn page and follow us on LinkedIn. We post articles and try to be helpful to people. So I don't know if Albee has anything else to add, but those would be the ways I would say to get out and get in touch with us. So.
Oh yeah, and anything we can do to help them, be successful, we would love to do. We bring a vast wealth of experience, and love to help them improve their business and really architect for the win long term. So feel free to come check us out. Ovalz, OVALZ.io, and sign up today.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for having us on.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's a pleasure. Learned a lot today, and hopefully our listeners will too. And we are off. I'll see you guys next time.
All right. Thank you.